The story begins in Brazil, in the late 1950s, where we are introduced to a group of barefoot children who have nothing to their name except a burning love for football. These kids don't own a real ball. Instead, they've stuffed old rags and stolen socks together into a tight little sphere, and they play with it like it's made of gold. We watch as they bounce it from rooftop to rooftop, refusing to let it touch the ground, showing off a kind of skill and rhythm that feels almost like a dance. Among them is a boy named Daiko, small, scrappy, and utterly obsessed with the game. But life outside football is hard. We see Daiko lie to his mother, claiming he fell into a river while walking his little brother home, when in reality, he was out playing in the streets again. His younger brother accidentally blows his cover, and their mother, already exhausted by poverty and worry, forbids the boys from even listening to the World Cup on the radio as punishment. That night, we get our first real glimpse into why football means so much to this family. Daiko's father and the other men in town gather at a local bar to listen to the 1950 World Cup final, Brazil against Uruguay, and the entire nation is holding its breath. This is supposed to be the moment Brazil finally lifts the trophy on home soil. Instead, heartbreak. Brazil loses. And we watch Daiko's father walk out of that bar completely broken, tears in his eyes. It's in this raw, gutted moment that young Daiko makes his father a promise that will define the rest of his life. He looks up at his devastated dad and vows that one day, he will win a World Cup for him. It's a small moment in a big story, but it's the emotional seed that everything else grows from. The very next day, we're shown exactly why Daiko's mother is so terrified of football taking over her son's future. She takes him along to her cleaning job at a wealthy family's mansion, and while scrubbing floors, she quietly tells him the truth about his father, that he used to be a promising player himself, until a knee injury ended everything. No compensation, no safety net, just a former athlete now forced to clean toilets for a living. It's a gut punch of a scene, and it explains everything about why she fights so hard to keep her son away from the sport that broke his father. While she's out of the room, a group of wealthy boys strut into the mansion, chattering excitedly about an upcoming football tournament, one that a famous scout named Waldemar, from the legendary Club Santos, will personally be attending. Daiko, eavesdropping, tries to jump into the conversation, name-dropping a local player he admires. He fumbles the name and accidentally invents a nickname for himself in the process, one the rich kids immediately turn into a mocking insult. They laugh, they taunt him, and one of them, a boy named Jose, carelessly kicks Daiko's cleaning bucket over just to humiliate him further. Daiko's mother rushes in to apologize on her son's behalf, even though he's done nothing wrong. But before they leave, Daiko manages to snatch a newspaper clipping about the tournament off the floor. A seed has been planted. Determined, Daiko rounds up his ragtag crew of street kids and convinces them to enter the tournament. Even though his little brother reminds him he's supposed to be working that day, he doesn't care. This is his shot. The problem? None of them have ever played with an actual leather football before, and it behaves completely differently from their homemade sockball. They stumble, they fumble, and yet, slowly, their raw natural talent starts to shine through. They even stitch together makeshift jerseys out of old bedsheets, looking more like a group of scrappy pirates than a football team. And somehow, against every expectation, they're good. Really good. Good enough to make it all the way to the final round of the tournament, where their opponents turn out to be the exact same wealthy boys who mocked Daiko earlier. These kids are older, richer, better equipped, and they immediately start hurling insults at Daiko's team, mocking them for playing without proper boots. Stung by the humiliation, Daiko becomes fixated on one goal: getting his team real football boots before the final match. But there's no money for that. So the boys hatch a plan. They'll steal peanuts, roast them, and sell them at the market to raise cash. It's risky. At one point they're nearly caught red-handed and have to flee for their lives. But they pull it off, setting up a little peanut stand in town. Except the rich boys show up again, and the taunting escalates into something uglier. Cruel jokes about Daiko's appearance, his friends, his poverty. Something in Daiko finally snaps, and he throws a punch, sparking a full-blown brawl between the two groups. Daiko's father happens to witness the entire thing from a distance, but chooses not to step in. Back home, his mother notices the bruises and immediately assumes the worst. She's ready to march down to his school and confront a teacher who doesn't even exist, since Daiko lied about the source of his injuries. His father, in a quiet but pivotal moment, offers to be the one to speak to the teacher instead, buying his son some cover. The next morning, with his mother away at work, Daiko's father walks him to the tournament himself. Along the way, he finally gets the truth out of his son about the fight. And instead of scolding him, he delivers a piece of advice that will shape everything that follows. If Daiko truly wants to play this game at the highest level, he can never let anyone make him feel ashamed of where he came from. Game day arrives, and it's rough right out of the gate. One of Daiko's teammates is too self-conscious to wear his glasses. Another hides his long hair under a hat, afraid of being teased. The chubby kid on the team shows up in second-hand boots 2 sizes too big. Meanwhile, the crowd is fully behind the wealthy team, and the announcer doesn't even bother learning the real names of Daiko's squad. He introduces them dismissively as the Shoeless ones, turning Daiko's earlier humiliation into their official nickname on the loudspeaker. To make matters worse, football legend and Santos scout Waldemar is in the stands, watching everything. The ill-fitting boots are a disaster. Daiko's team can barely move, and their well-equipped opponents take full advantage, racking up goal after goal until the score reaches a brutal 6-0. Daiko is furious, ready to lash out at the other team for their dirty tactics, until he spots his father in the crowd. And suddenly, his father's words come rushing back to him. Ashamed of nothing. In a moment of pure instinct, Daiko rips off his oversized boots and starts playing barefoot, exactly the way he learned on the streets. He closes his eyes, channels every rooftop game he's ever played, and weaves through defenders like they're standing still. He scores, and it ignites something in his teammates. One by one, they kick off their own boots and start playing their true style. The entire momentum of the match flips. Goal after goal, they claw their way back, until the score reads 6-5. They still lose the game, but something bigger happens. The crowd, who moments ago was mocking them, is now on its feet, chanting Daiko's mocking nickname with genuine admiration instead of scorn. The insult has transformed into something like a badge of honor. A newspaper photographer captures the moment on film, and Waldemar personally hands his business card to Daiko's father, clearly impressed by what he just witnessed. But joy in this story never lasts long. Fleeing from the men they'd stolen peanuts from earlier, Daiko and his friends duck into a forest, and one of the boys trips and falls, hiding with Daiko inside a small dirt burrow to wait out the chase. Then the rain starts. A landslide follows. Daiko barely scrambles out in time, but his friend doesn't make it out at all. It's a devastating, sudden tragedy, and Daiko is left screaming for help that never comes in time. Consumed by guilt, Daiko comes home and breaks down completely in front of his mother, confessing everything. The tournament, the fight, the stealing, all of it, and swearing he will never touch a football again. His father, in the middle of all this heartbreak, quietly tucks Waldemar's business card away in a drawer, saying nothing. Determined to show Daiko the cost of neglecting his education, his mother sends him to spend a day at his father's actual workplace. A hospital, where his father does the most degrading jobs imaginable, from scrubbing toilets to emptying bedpans. Daiko is shattered, hollow, grieving. Trying to pull his son out of the darkness, his father takes him aside and shows off some old tricks, juggling mangoes instead of a ball, explaining that green mangoes were once his tool for practicing power shots, and ripe ones for delicate control. Daiko barely reacts. True to his promise, he refuses to play, and even throws away the newspaper clipping with his team's photo in it. His mother watches him grow more and more distant, noticing that the light in her son's eyes has gone out completely. Then, one day, his father pretends to fumble a mango trick, deliberately missing an easy shot into a trash bin. Daiko, almost on reflex, steps in and nails the shot instantly. It's the crack in the wall. His father reveals he faked the failure on purpose, just to draw his son back in. And slowly, Daiko starts training with his father again, this time with real purpose. Years pass. Daiko is now 15, effortlessly juggling mangoes like it's second nature. His mother has watched this quiet transformation from a distance without interfering, until one night, she makes a decision that will change everything. She reaches out to Waldemar herself and invites him to secretly watch her son practice. When Daiko returns home, he's stunned to find the scout sitting right there in his living room. Waldemar tells him it's time. He wants Daiko to try out for Santos. Saying goodbye to his family, Daiko heads off to the tryouts, where reality hits hard. The coaching staff wants him to abandon everything about his primitive street style and adopt polished European technique instead. He's criticized, corrected, and reshaped at every turn. When the roster for the junior team is posted, his name isn't on it, and just as he's ready to walk away and give up entirely, he discovers he's actually been placed on the youth team instead. His journey has officially begun, but it's far from smooth. Daiko has to unlearn nearly everything instinctive about the way he plays, forcing his body into rigid new techniques. Every evening, The coaching staff shows the team old match footage, hammering home the idea that Brazil's past failures were caused by exactly the kind of loose, playful style Deco grew up with. Waldemar quietly watches as Deco struggles night after night to conform, clearly getting nowhere. Things come to a head when Deco misses an easy penalty kick during practice, and his teammates start openly grumbling that he never scores. Overwhelmed, he breaks down in tears and decides he's done. He packs his bag and heads for the train station, ready to go home for good. That's where Waldemar finds him. In a conversation that becomes the emotional turning point of the entire film, the scout tells him the deeper history behind his natural style of play. How enslaved Africans brought to Brazil centuries earlier developed a martial art disguised as dance to survive persecution, and how, once that art form was outlawed, its practitioners funneled that same spirit and rhythm into football instead. That fluid, playful, almost musical way of moving became woven into the soul of Brazilian football itself. Even if the 1950 World Cup loss had convinced many that it was actually the nation's weakness, Waldemar tells him plainly. That spirit is part of who he is, and he can either embrace it and show the world, or he can board that train and never find out what he could have become. Then he walks away, leaving the choice entirely in Deco's hands. The train arrives, and Deco doesn't get on it. The next match, he tries once more to play the rigid European way, and once again it falls flat, disappointing everyone including himself. But then he glances over and sees Waldemar in the stands, quietly rooting for him. Something shifts. He stops fighting his instincts and simply plays, dribbling with total freedom, ignoring his coach's frantic demands to stop, and finishing with an audacious, high-flying strike straight into the net. Exactly the kind of shot he used to practice with Mangos back home. His coach is stunned into silence, then simply tells him to do it again. From there, Deco explodes. 4 goals in a single match. Headlines start writing themselves. Despite being the youngest player on the roster, he becomes a name everyone in Brazilian football is suddenly talking about. Back home, his father tunes into every single broadcast, beaming with pride. Later, we see Deco surprise his family with an unannounced visit home, arriving loaded with gifts, including a stove for his mother and a portable radio for his father, so he'll never miss another one of his son's matches again. It's a warm, well-earned breather before the story ramps back up. Not long after, the national team announced its roster for the 1958 World Cup squad. Deco is convinced there's zero chance a player as young as him could possibly make the cut, but his family gathers around the radio anyway. And in a moment of pure disbelief, his name is called. He's going to the World Cup. Before he leaves, his father hands him something deeply symbolic, his own old jersey, with the nickname Deco's childhood bullies once used to mock him now stitched proudly across the back. His father explains that what started as an insult became something else entirely, a name the public gave him the moment they witnessed him play with that untouchable, joyful style only he seemed to have. His father then opens up about his own playing days, how he too once dreamed of playing with that same free-flowing style, how he even scored 5 headers in a single match once, and how the instant he let doubt creep in, it cost him everything, including the injury that ended his career. It's a warning wrapped inside a blessing. Arriving at camp, Deco meets his new national teammates, including a warm, easygoing player who also favors the loose, expressive style of play. But the loudest voice in the room belongs to none other than Jose. Yes, that same wealthy boy from years earlier, now grown, now on the national team, and still openly mocking anyone who doesn't play in the proper, European fashion. The tension between Brazil's old identity and its new ambitions is far from resolved, even at the highest level of the sport. The national coach makes it explicitly clear, this team will not be playing the old style. Period. Deco tries to comply, tries to force himself into the mold, but it doesn't fit, and Jose keeps needling the more instinctive players in front of the press, calling their performances sloppy. Frustrated, Deco vents to his teammate, arguing that of course they look sloppy. They're being forbidden from playing the way that actually works for them. During a pivotal match where the starting lineup is on the line, Deco attempts to prove himself the correct way, fails, and finally abandons the plan altogether, reverting to his natural instincts mid-game. The coach is furious, his teammates hesitate to support him, and the resulting self-doubt causes him to make a careless, injury-inducing mistake. His knee gives out. The team doctor delivers grim news. There's a real chance this injury could keep him out of the entire World Cup. That night, shaken and scared, Deco calls his mother, confessing he wonders if he should have just stayed in school. She refuses to let him spiral, reminding him that this path was a choice they made together, and that nothing, win or lose, healthy or injured, will change how much his family loves him. Despite an uncertain recovery timeline, it's simply too late to swap him out of the squad, so the coaching staff takes him to Sweden anyway, injury and all. Meanwhile, the press has a field day mocking the very style of play that got him hurt in the first place. Once the tournament begins, the host nation openly ridicules Brazil for their size and their outdated technique. Jose, for all his talk, stays conspicuously silent when it's time to actually defend his teammates. Behind the scenes, the team doctor treats Daiko's knee using traditional home remedies, and even makes him a personal promise that this time, he'll be the one bringing the championship match ball home to Brazil. Brazil manages to grind out a couple of early tournament wins, but the physical toll is brutal. Injuries pile up across the roster, Jose included. When the coaching staff checks in on Daiko's recovery, the doctor's answer is complicated. Better than expected, but still dangerously fragile. Painful or not, there's simply no other option left. Daiko is cleared to play. Nervous to the point of physically getting sick beforehand, Daiko is basically pushed onto the field by his own coach. Even the team doctor pulls him aside beforehand, warning him one more time how risky it would be to play his natural, free-flowing style on a knee this compromised. Out on the pitch, commentators openly laugh at how small and young he looks compared to everyone else. The crowd treats him like a joke. But Brazil grinds through it, sticking to the rigid game plan, and somehow beats the Soviet Union anyway. Then comes the semi-final against France, and disaster strikes early. Brazil finds itself down 1-0 at halftime. In the locker room, surrounded by exhausted, demoralized, injured teammates, Daiko turns to Jose and asks him to sub in if his leg allows it. Jose refuses, not because of his body, but because, for the first time, he admits he isn't mentally ready. Instead, he tells Daiko something unexpected, that back in their childhood, the two of them once proved to an entire crowd that their unorthodox style of play was something beautiful, not shameful, and that this is exactly the moment Brazil needs to remember that truth again. Re-energized, Daiko goes back out for the second half. After a shaky start, he glances toward Jose, who gives him a small, affirming nod. That's all it takes. Daiko lets go completely, weaving through defenders with total freedom, ignoring every instruction to play it safe. The crowd goes silent in disbelief as he pulls off an audacious solo goal. He isn't done. 2 more goals follow, sealing Brazil's spot in the World Cup final. Commentators who mocked him at kickoff are now calling him a phenomenon. Back home, his father can't stop celebrating, telling anyone who'll listen that his son is back to full strength and has just scored a hat-trick on the world stage. But the final still looms, against the host nation, widely feared for their brutally physical playing style. During the pre-match press conference, the opposing coach goes out of his way to humiliate the Brazilian roster player by player, mocking their physical disabilities and hardships, and openly warning that they intend to specifically target and neutralize Daiko. It's enough to send Brazil's own coach storming out of the room in anger. That night, Daiko calls his father again, and his father gives him one final piece of advice: bring the team back together, the same way he used to unite his ragtag street crew as a kid. After all, the nickname the whole country now uses for him wasn't something he chose, it was given to him. Maybe that's exactly the sign that it's time to fully step into it. The next day, Daiko starts bouncing a ball around the team cafeteria, trying to recreate the old neighborhood game. Keep the ball off the ground all the way to a nearby landmark. At first, the exhausted, defeated team just tells him to knock it off. But Jose steps in and backs him up, and slowly, one teammate at a time, the entire squad gets pulled into the game, kicking the ball through hallways, and even accidentally wrecking a cake and dumping sugar on a wealthy hotel guest along the way. Eventually, they get the ball outside without it ever touching the ground. Though Daiko himself blows the final touch and ends up soaked in a fountain. The next morning, the head coach finally admits he was wrong all along. Watching his players chase that ball through the hotel reminded him exactly what makes Brazilian football special in the first place. He tells them, forget the rigid European system. In the final, they're going to play like themselves. Final match day arrives. Due to a uniform color clash, Brazil is forced into unfamiliar blue jerseys. The whistle blows, and immediately the host nation starts targeting Daiko with rough, intentional physical play, scoring within the first few minutes. Brazil's supporters back home fall into stunned silence, including Daiko's own mother, who finally can't take the tension anymore and switches on that radio her son gave her. But then something shifts. Brazil composes itself. Daiko sets up the equalizer, and from there, goal after goal follows, with Daiko himself adding to the tally. His mother rushes into the local bar just in time to watch her son help win the World Cup on live radio broadcast. The final whistle blows. Brazil wins 5-2, their first World Cup title in history. Overwhelmed by the emotion of it all, Deco collapses on the field, and his teammates lift him onto their shoulders as an entire nation erupts in celebration. Even the team doctor keeps his earlier promise, sneaking off with the match ball as a souvenir. The film closes on real archival narration, marking the actual date, June 29, 1958, the day Brazil won its first World Cup. We're told how surreal it all felt, how only 18 months had passed since he left home, yet it felt like a lifetime. His parents were there to greet him, and his father reminded him of the vow he made as a heartbroken little boy, all those years earlier. In the final moments, we learned that this once barefoot kid would go on to be named a national treasure by Brazil's own president, would set records for most career goals, and become the youngest player ever to score in a World Cup, and remains, to this day, the only player in history to win 3 World Cup titles. There's only one record that stayed forever out of reach, his father's 5 headers in a single match. And in case you were wondering, yes, that wealthy hotel guest who got sugar dumped on him during the cafeteria chaos really was Deco himself, all grown up. A nice little wink from the filmmakers for anyone paying close attention. If this story moved you even half as much as it moved me putting it together, do me a favor and drop a comment below. I want to hear which moment hit you the hardest. And if you're not subscribed yet, honestly, what are you doing? Every single video takes hours of work, and hitting that subscribe button costs you nothing but means everything to a small channel trying to grow. So do it now, before you forget, and I'll see you in the next one.